Donald Trump has announced his plans to make Gaza beautiful again. What the hell is happening, and why is Trump doing it? Before we get into that story, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. We are undergoing a big rebrand in the next week, so turn on those notifications because you're not going to want to miss it. So, Donald Trump announced a preliminary plan where the U.S. would take ownership of the Gaza Strip and redevelop it after relocating Palestinians from the territory. Trump is really talking like a real estate mogul, describing how he'd like to make Gaza the Riviera of the Middle East. And that statement prompted people online to create very funny memes about this and calling this fake development Mara Gaza, which is just genius. Now, the media is naturally freaking out about this because they're honestly too stupid to put together that this isn't real. Like, this is a leveraging ploy similar to the tariffs with Canada or Mexico. Now, I'd like to preface this by saying I'm no Middle East expert. In fact, I don't think many people can be Middle East experts. It's one of the most confusing and nuanced regions in the world, but I'm going to do my best to make sense of this one situation. This region can be very confusing, so I just want to clarify here that Gaza is part of the Palestinian state. There's the West Bank, which is all of this area, and then there's Gaza. They're both Palestinian, but they're split up. The Palestinian Authority owns the West Bank, and Hamas, which is a designated terrorist organization, operates in Gaza. This is Israel down the middle, so obviously all the fighting we've seen in Israel is between Israel and Gaza specifically. But very recently, Israel and Gaza brokered a temporary ceasefire, and we're seeing now more than ever that the damage in Gaza is just catastrophic. I mean, there are millions of people in the Gaza Strip who are displaced from their homes. What's left of it is all wreckage. It is really sad no matter what side of the war you're on. But what the liberal media just doesn't seem to understand about this ongoing problem is that neighboring countries are not going to do anything about this. They're not going to help these people. They're not going to help the children, the women. They're not going to help the alleged refugees. That's not in their DNA. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they're not looking at the disaster in Gaza like we are in America and going, how can we help rebuild our neighborhood? They take a look at the Gazan people and say, F that. We do not want that in our country. And if you don't believe me, please listen to the officials in Turkey responding to Trump's proposal. Turkey's top diplomat on Wednesday lashed out at President Donald Trump's proposal for the U.S. to take over the Gaza Strip and resettle Palestinians in other countries. Quote, deportation of Palestinians is something neither we nor the region can accept. Even thinking of it is absurd. Even launching a debate on it is wrong. These other governments are not interested in helping out in the regional strife that is happening. Now, I personally have a soft spot for governments who say, oh, F no, we're not taking in terrorists, because we have that same stance in America. So I don't want to come across as a hypocrite. But at the same time, we as people in the West are called evil for not accepting terrorists from all over the world and calling them refugees, right? But if Egypt doesn't take alleged refugees from right next door when they're just looking out for their own interests, that's somehow totally cool. And what Donald Trump is doing here is he's trying to coax the region into fixing the problem itself without the interference of the United States, contrary to what he's actually saying. Because I cannot think of a worst case scenario for Iran or Lebanon or Jordan than the U.S. coming into the Middle East again with Donald Trump leading our military. So what he's doing here is he's threatening a worst case scenario in hopes that the Middle East will finance and rebuild Gaza for actual refugees without that financial burden falling on the shoulders of the U.S. or other allies. He's getting the Middle East to do what the Middle East should do: take care of themselves and stabilize their region. What's been pretty comical about this whole announcement, though, is reporters keep asking, oh, what will the Palestinians do? And Trump has made it clear that they would be deported, while Mara Gaza is rebuilt over the 10 to 15 year period. And we're currently being told by those same reporters that there's a genocide in Gaza. And now Trump is coming in and offering to help these people find refuge in safer nearby countries. And at the same time, he's being called the evil one. I'm trying to piece it together, but how is he the illogical one in this? If anything, getting the Palestinian people away from Hamas and not leaving them to be political pawns and human shields is actually a far more pro-human rights position than anything else that's been proposed. But that didn't stop people from attacking his proposal, which, again, is a leveraging tactic in case you haven't figured that out. But Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib tweeted this: "This president is openly calling for ethnic cleansing while sitting next to a genocidal war criminal. He's perfectly fine cutting off working Americans from federal funds while the funding for the Israeli government continues flowing." Now, I find that to be a very uneducated take, but again, it's hard to take these comments seriously because they just fail to understand why this proposal is taking place in the first place. And there's a video attached to the tweet that Rashida Tlaib put out of Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sitting in the Oval Office. And I'm going to play this video for you without sound because there's something odd I noticed about this. I want you to just watch this. Watch how Benjamin Netanyahu kind of has this smile on his face. And I think people who view him as evil, they see him as a man who is giddy to see his political enemies suffer. But if you are really watching it, like you see this kind of smirk on his face, and you're watching it from a very human perspective, it gives me the same vibe as when one of my friends has a really funny and stupid plan to mess with someone and it's succeeding. For instance, my friend in college would talk to boys at the bars in a British accent just to mess with them. And the whole time, I'm not a good actress, I'm just sitting there trying not to laugh because it's absurd and it's so funny. That is exactly what I'm reading from this right here. Bibi just cannot fathom that the president of the United States is saying these things. He is threatening to essentially build a resort along the Gaza coastline in hopes of getting the Middle East to rally around rebuilding Gaza without foreign intervention from the West. That's absurd. I'd be kind of laughing too. And there are very unserious people right now who claim that the word to describe this and Trump 2.0 is imperialism. And again, this is just a very unserious take. People are trying to claim that Donald Trump is trying to take over Canada, Greenland, the Panama Canal, and now Gaza. And if you just believe everything you read without any context or any modicum of common sense, you might believe that. But I encourage people who don't understand that this isn't about imperialism to learn about the madman theory, which is something I've been talking about a lot on my channel. And it's this ongoing idea that people are going to succumb to the pressure that they have in front of them when they view their opponent as irrational. Now, what we're seeing here is that kind of happened in Trump 1.0, but this time around, Trump, he doesn't care what the mainstream media has to say about him anymore. They want to sit there and call him an imperialist warmonger. Go ahead. Why should he care? He's winning. When he announced that Greenland was on the radar, all of a sudden, Denmark started upping its military spending by $2.1 billion. That makes the region safer and stronger. When Donald Trump threatened tariffs on Canada and Mexico, boom, within 24 hours, a deal to secure our borders was brokered. In Panama, they've agreed to let U.S. Navy ships pass through, which literally was not possible before we started making these threats. And of course, yes, we've yet to see how the Middle East will react to this threat. But if the outcome is anything like what we've seen in the first few weeks of the Trump administration, it's probably gonna be good. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the Statue of Liberty emoji so I know you made it to the end? Thanks, friends. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, Based Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.